This presentation provides a brief overview of evidence-based practice, a general description of what evidence-based practice is, why it is important to professional practice, and an example for integrating 6 steps into professional practice will be provided. What is evidence-based practice? We know that knowledge is dynamic. It is ever-changing. Evidence-based practice is based on research evidence, patient values, and clinical expertise. The general definition is that evidence-based practice is the use of current research to inform decision-making that also includes the expertise and experience of the practitioner. In other words, as a professional, how do you stay current with the research, and how does the evidence from that research drive your practice to best meet the needs of your clients, patients, students, or others who may be in your care? There are several main characteristics of evidence-based practice. 1. Evidence is a conscientious process. Each and every action or decision should be well thought out and planned according to the needs of the students. It is explicit. It should be simple and clear. It is judicious. The process should be thoughtful, fair, and free of bias. The student is the priority. Evidence-based practice uses the most current and best evidence available. Practitioners should not stick with a traditional practice unless it is still the most currently accepted research and evidence-based method. 5. It is patient or student focused. The best practice should also be what is best for the student, not necessarily for the masses. And finally, it uses the integration of a variety of sources to gather information that is best for the content and context of the environment. This image used for this slide is representative of the outcome of a Fitness for Life class working out at a public health facility. The teacher's objectives were to have the students develop a workout plan and implement the plan. Knowing the school cannot offer the facility or the equipment, but knowing it was best practice, the students went twice a week to a local fitness center. Evidence-based practice can result in confirmation that current practice is still the best practice, and therefore continue with the treatment or methodology. It can result in a modification to current practice. After a thorough review of current research, the practitioner may realize that some of what they are doing is the most accepted method, and some things may need to be modified to become current and up to date. Or, once a thorough review and examination of the most recent research has been done, the practitioner may decide that everything needs to change. The most important thing to keep in mind here is that for those of us who serve patients, clients, or students, it is our obligation to provide the best and most current methods possible. This image is representative of a student who is using a set of provided directions to build a freestanding structure. The student had confirmation when the structure stood without assistance. Modification was needed until the goal was achieved, and if the plan wasn't working, they broke down what they had currently attempted and started over until the goal was accomplished. This image represents the blending of the professional's experience along with the scientific research to generate best practice. The experience of the professional, their official training, along with their years and hours of practice combined with the research, help to justify why a newer current method is what is best. There are 6 steps involved in evidence-based practice. 1. We need to ask a question. 2. Find the evidence. 3. Evaluate the evidence. 4. Incorporate the evidence into practice. 5. Reevaluate that evidence. And 6. Confirm efficacy of evidence in the case. Evidence-based practice in action. First, we're going to ask the question. Now, I will give you an example of something related to my professional practice. My question is, in physical education, does assessment of the psychomotor, affective, cognitive, and health-related domains improve instruction and current learning? 2. To acquire the evidence. This step requires going to the literature and asking the experts what has already been done on assessments and what were the results. So here I did a search to look at were there other research projects that had been done specific to assessment in physical education, and if so, what did they find? Next, we need to evaluate the evidence. What does the research say? Does the research support assessment? Who is going to actually benefit? Will the students and the teachers benefit? How do we know? How was the research conducted, and how do I know if, in fact, to trust that evidence that was presented? And what else do I need to know and is important about the evidence? 4, I'm going to incorporate the evidence into practice. Specific to assessment, I want to know why should we and what is the benefit of conducting assessment. So what I have found out is that assessments help to monitor student performance and determine the need for increased instruction by the teacher. It is used to help make corrections. It is also used to keep track of student progress towards class objectives. And finally, it helps to assign grades in a fair manner. It used to be in physical education, students were given a grade based on whether or not they had their gym suit and just participated. Now we have a good concrete way of measuring their participation, and one of those ways is through using good assessments. Reevaluate the evidence. As a professional, I need to continue to follow current research to make sure my professional practice is up to date. I can do this by joining professional organizations and being an active member in my profession. Attending professional conferences keeps me up to date with what my colleagues are doing in the field, and most importantly, I need to read the current research that is being done and analyze and compare that research to what I'm currently doing in my professional practice. The final step, confirming efficacy of evidence in the case. What is the overall effectiveness of the research and implementation? I continue to ensure the practice is effective. If I'm going to be using assessment to monitor student learning and provide feedback to the students, I need to know if, in fact, that is what is happening. If it is not, I need to reevaluate my plan and practice. Along with engaging the student through the use of assessment, I want to use assessment to drive my teaching practice and strengthen curriculum. The last step helps me to validate that what I'm doing and how I am using assessments are assisting me to meet my objectives. Putting evidence into practice. Once the evidence has been established as useful, the following 4 questions need to be answered. What is the quality of care? Will the new practice substantially improve the experience? 2, will the students adhere to the plan? If I am using pedometers or portfolios as a means of assessment, do I have them structured in a way that it's easy to implement, does not take away from activity time, and used in a way that engages the students in their learning? 3, is it time effective? As mentioned before, if I'm using a wearable device, I have to have the process organized to still be able to maximize activity time and teaching time. Most students will not want to use something that is hard to understand or overly consuming of their time. 4, is the assessment cost effective? In order to implement effective assessment techniques and persuade other physical educators to implement assessment, it needs to be cost effective. I can substantiate the promotion of purchasing a $200 heart rate monitor or a $150 Fitbit for every student. I cannot substantiate. The treatment needs to be presented such that if a class set of wearable devices are purchased, it can be used across multiple students in multiple classes. From former experience, when I used the Polar E600s, they were not able to be shared among class times and with other students. In summary, overall, evidence-based practice is a definitive way to ensure practitioners are using the most effective intervention, treatment, or methodologies available to meet the needs of clients, patients, or students. There are 6 main steps to ensure the practice is built on a solid foundation, and each of the 6 steps have been explained along with an example given specific to physical education. Evidence-based practice, having been developed in the 1990s by David Sackett, has been a model to utilize the 3 sources of clinical evidence, research evidence, and patient practice to assist in the development of best practice. I hope that this presentation has provided a good basic foundation and understanding of evidence-based practice. This chart helps to summarize everything that has been presented throughout this slideshow. Thank you again.